Yep. Well, okay. First of all, when I ran the last time for this session here in these 4 years, we immediately established that our project was going to be what we call our ETA, which is efficiency, transparency, and accountability. Those three things, and we were going to gear up for that. And I think we've delivered on all of those and have tried very, very hard to focus in on those things, because the state of Illinois does not seem to be real good in those areas. On efficiency, we've gone into direct deposit. We have saved millions of dollars, which we've been able to give back to the system because we've gone to direct deposit, which is something, that the private sector has been doing for like 30 years. So we've gotten rid of the expensive paper for checks. We've gotten rid of postage. At one point, our postal department in that office was the size of the Decatur post office. It was that big. It is no longer that big. Through attrition, we've just brought it down, and we've gone through computerization, technology, and gone into the 21st century in terms of that. We've done electronic record keeping so that we've gotten rid of tons of paper files that had no backup, no less, which really put the state in a very bad position should we have had a tragedy occur. And so as a result, now we are fully computerized on that. If you need anything from a standpoint of the press or the public wants it, we can turn it over immediately. And I think that is really, really neat. On transparency, we've created from scratch in-house. We have not hired any outside consultants, so we didn't have to spend any money. We've created the ledger, which is everything you wanted to know about state government in terms of monies coming in, going out, contracts let, who got them, how much, and so on. So that's all up there. It takes care of everything in the state. We've also created what we call the warehouse online. And the warehouse takes into consideration all of the taxing bodies that we have to deal with. And so as a result, when they sent us their annual report, because one of the first things I said when I got to office is, okay, we get these annual reports, what do we do with them? Basically, they were just going on file and nobody ever looked at them. So we put them, on file, on the online, so you can see everything that's going on there. Keeping in mind that although we have too many taxing bodies in this state, and we will be very involved in the future in the hopes of consolidating them and other things, it's still a problem in terms of we don't get all of these to us by law. But those we get by law, they're up there, and you will see them, and we'll also be able to compare them to other governments of the same size or whatever you want to compare them to. You can do that off of our warehouse. We've put in a tax refund alert system, so instead of having to call us and say, where's my money, you will now see when it's coming. And we try and keep that as quick as possible so that we pay those out as quickly as possible. We also give a tax refund insert, and it's also online, which shows you a breakdown of state spending. You know where the money went, because people ask, well, we get taxed, where does this money go? We actually do a pie graph. You see exactly where the money goes. On accountability, our local government compliance, when I got into office, there were 229 taxing bodies that did not comply with the annual report. They either didn't know how, or they just got out of the habit, or they were literally trying to game the system, or any number of things. But we've gotten that down from 229 to 20. So I'm about 98% compliant. I still have what I call 20 of my wayward children, which we have to kind of get into order. We now have accountants, CPAs in every one of those, and a supervisory accountant who is trying to bring them in compliance. And we'll go with them for just a certain period of time. And if they still choose to be non-compliant, and we know that they're trying to horse with us, in effect, we will send them off to the Attorney General. And we have sent some off to the Attorney General so that it becomes a law enforcement situation. We don't have police powers and don't need them. We have the AG. We've also sounded the alarm against new spending. We've tried to get the legislature not to borrow any more monies especially monies to pay bills, because that gets us deeper in the hole. I will take a deal of credit here for some of the noise we were able to make when the legislature last session did indeed want to borrow billions to do this. And we just brought out the hue and cry and said, don't do this, and gave all the reasons why. And they were good enough to listen. And I think that's very, very helpful. And we will continue to do that. We also do bill triage in terms of we try and take care of our non-for-profits and our small businesses first. Non-for-profits, because they don't have much of a voice in government, they rely very heavily on state dollars to keep going. They take care of our old, our sick, our mentally challenged, our physically challenged, and all of the above. If they don't get paid and don't get paid in a timely fashion, they can belly up. And if they do, we're going to be throwing people on the streets. There is no alternative because, frankly, there is no system out there of group homes as much as we would like to tout that. There are some, but there is no system. We don't want them on the street. Likewise, we take care of small businesses because those are our job generators. We don't want to lose the mom and pops because they are very intrinsic to our municipalities, especially the small ones. They can't go on if they're not paid. If they can't pay their vendors, they can't go on. We've gotten our payment cycle of the bills that are in our shop, keeping in mind that there's still bills out in agencies which we have not seen yet. But for those in shop, we're down to about a 3-month payment cycle. And that is probably the best that has been in eons. I would like it in 30 days if I could, but I think that is kind of one of my fantasies, when I think about all this and try and make it happen. So we've also looked at state funds. We've been working with the legislature, most specifically with the Senate, to try and reduce those. There's like 900 state funds. To put that into perspective, Wisconsin has 60. I don't know why we need 900 other than, and having come from the legislature, I can tell you, things just spawn. And nothing ever dies and nothing ever goes away once it's established. So whether it's good or it's bad or it's outdated or it's anachronistic or it's archaic, it stays and stays and stays and more get created. We would like to reduce those funds and, as I said, are working with the legislature to try and make that happen. On our financial reporting system, would you believe, and I was stunned, I thought I knew a lot about the office, but like anything else, when you get there, you see different things that come up. We have 260 reporting systems, financial reporting systems in this state. Well, no wonder things come to pass and spawn and duplicate and so on. These systems do not talk to each other, and many of them are over 10 years old. So you have old systems that don't talk to each other, and you wonder why we duplicate, you wonder why we step on each other's feet and wind up in contention on things that should not exist. We are working with the governor's office. I don't care who's governor. We will work with whoever is there to try and get that tightened up and have one standardized system. To me, that makes eminently good sense. That's going to take a little bit of effort, but I think it can be done. Our office budget is the same as it was in 1998, and we've been able to accomplish that because we have the lowest number of employees in that office in the history of that office. As attrition came along, we did not replace, and the technology filled in the blanks. We were able to save that money. So as a result, we've been able to keep the budget intact and low. As I said, we have the lowest headcount in the history of the office. We've also managed to return to the state 11% annually of our budget, or roughly $8.3 million over 3 years. Our local debt recovery program has generated somewhere around $65 million to 179 units of government that we were able to collect and give back. In fact, the city of Springfield and related departments It's almost $1 million that we've been able to return to Springfield.
What is that?
That's our local debt recovery program. When you have fines and obligations that you owe but have not paid, we take it off the top of tax refunds and then give it back. And so because you're talking city water and power, and you're talking some of the subsidiaries as well. But all told, it's almost $1 million, which means there will be money available, not taxpayers' money. This is money that is due. It's obligated for whatever reason. And so it can be more police officers. It could be more police cars. It could be more firemen, fire trucks. It could be after-school programs. It could be anything you want.
And that's over how many years?
That is our time period here in this office. Well, actually 2 years, because we started the program. So it was not in the first year, but we started it in the second year.
Did you get legislation for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We've been active legislatively, so we've been able to do these things and do programs and initiatives that have never been done before. So you're taking what is basically a quiet office, or is oftentimes perceived as a quiet office, and we're bringing it into the 21st century technologically, and from a standpoint of participation, making it a really good fiscal office for the state. And it's my hope that we make it, much as we did in the Treasurer's office when I was there, make it the best in the United States. I want other states to come to us asking us for assistance and advice, as they used to do at the Treasurer's office, because we brought it up to that kind of a peak. And it's just a good thing. So our office budget is $24 million. We've kept it there, and I think we have delivered on everything we said, and it's all online. So, and we wish to build on that in the future, because there are many more programs. For instance, we're looking at TIF districts. We'd like to put them on somewhere along the line in our warehouse. And it pleases me no end when I see you here at the JR quoting our figures, or I see the legislature quoting our figures, or coming to us, because we are trusted, our figures are solid, the integrity of the office is good and solid, so that you have some place to go that becomes the standard for the state. And I think we were kind of missing that. So obviously anybody can overlook us if they choose to, but I don't recommend it, because I think we do a very good job. So that having been said, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try and answer.
The reports that you do you get any feedback from taxpayers? Do they think that they can understand the information that they're getting, or is there a way to simplify that more?
I think it's fairly user-friendly right now. We've tried very hard to make it user-friendly, knowing that you as and of course coming from a reporting background, and knowing what you have had to FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, in the past, we've tried to kind of fill those holes. So not to replace FOIAs, because I'm a firm believer in them, but if we can make something just readily apparent to you and to the public, we're going to try and do that. We also work under the theory that the more eyes we have on what's going on here, the better we are. So if anything is kind of going astray, we'll catch it early. And so as a result, I think it is user-friendly. We can obviously keep working at trying to make it even more user-friendly. And the answer to your direct question is, yes, we do hear from people who use that. People in business use it. People in various fields use it. It's not just reporters. People do it just to find out what's going on. And so, it does get a lot of activity. We get a lot of hits. And so we can see that it's actively used.
Mr. Cross has talked about wanting to do reports.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Cross has talked about wanting to do reports in the Treasurer's office. I think similar kinds of...
Quarterly reports, he said.
A similar kind of goal, a transparency goal. Is there room for more reporting, or do you feel like...
I think there's always room for more reporting, because that means more information that's out there. The more information you have, the better you are. I think when you look at what we call our CAFR, which is the annual report that we put out, which, by the way, is now on time, and I think that the Auditor General is quite pleased by that we are on time. And it takes a lot of work, because you've got these 900 funds roaming around. It's not easy. I mean, our people really put in a lot of time. But if he wishes to do this, I think we can help provide some of the information that he would like. Having dealt with Leader Cross over the years, it's a good relationship. again, any party, anyone who's there, we will work with them for the good of the order.
What is the backlog of bills now? Because it used to be like 10 billion. Is it 5 or where are we?
Right now, we're at about 5.2 billion. It's pretty much the same as it's been. You know, we have highs and lows. It fluctuates depending upon the time of year. During tax season, somewhere around March, you know, we get a little bit more. And I think people were a little frustrated, maybe you all were too, when, you know, we had this very, very large tax increase. And I think people expected that that very large tax increase would go to a pay down, and we would have seen more of a pay down. That did not occur. So, you know, we're out there, but we've, as I said, got our payment cycle down to about 30 days of those bills in shop, not out in the agencies. Because, of course,
Did you say 30 days or 90 days?
It was somewhere around 60 to 90.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know, it'll go 60 to
Is
90.
the $5 billion in your shop, or is that an estimate of everything?
No, that's us.
What's the
That's
total?
us. Because ultimately, if you look at what is out in the agencies, and when we make our final report, you're probably talking about seven something, which is where it was last year.
Haven't you said that you think the tax increase should be extended and needs to be extended and kept at the current level income tax?
What I've said, and I think this is a fairly logical way to deal with it. First of all, a promise is a promise is a promise. I'm really very, very stuck on promises and contracts. You make those, you live with them. It was promised to be a temporary tax. I don't think it's fair to try and now suddenly make it permanent. But if you could compare the state to the human body, which I find is an easy way to look at it, and you now take that 5% tax out, all of a sudden, you're going to give that body a heart attack, and you're going to give me a heart attack for sure. That's a guarantee.
You don't want that.
Yeah, because I'm going to have a hole there that's going to be, I'm up for transplants at that point. But if we can do what the chairman of the Cook County Board did regarding a 1 cent sales tax, which she said she would get rid of, every year she got rid of a little bit of it, okay, until it was gone. And I think if we did it incrementally, that makes sense to bring it down to 3.75. And that is because we bonded on that, and you have to live up to your bonds, and that's why it comes to 3.75.
So
Not 3.75.
Okay. And I know that the candidate for governor on your side has talked. He wants it not only go down to 3.75, but to go down to 3 over 4 years. Is that possible, or how would that do for the body of state?
For the body of the state, I would still like to stay with 3.75. I mean, we're not going to agree on everything, that's just a fact of life.
Are you going to vote for him?
Well, sure, he's a Republican. I mean,
Okay, just asking.
yeah, Republican. I'm a
Okay,
Republican.
But again, so you're saying incrementally down to 3.75.
That's
not
right.
Right away.
That right away. So it'd be a little off, and I think we can discuss how much a little bit off until you get it down there, and you live up to that promise. And you say, hey, public, look at that. We lived up to a promise. Try that on for size. That ought to be a shocker.
But you disagree with him about the idea that it could go all the way down to 3 after 4 years.
Well, we have to pay for the bonding that's involved. That was we have to pay that off. That's involved
So
there.
does he not understand that?
Well, I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it. I'm just saying I think it should go down to 3.75.
Have his people come to you and asked you for any information, or has he talked to you about the campaign?
No, he's working his campaign, and frankly, I've been working our campaign. This is a lot to do. A campaign is, and I take this very seriously, and I take this office very seriously. And I really would hope that you all and the public at large, just because it's not at the top of the ballot, doesn't just think it's some kind of a rummy office. We hold the state together in so many different ways that this is serious business, and I treat it that way.
No,
And
I'm just saying, if you're the storehouse of information, you think they might want some.
if they want some, it's available,
Okay.
and that's open to everybody.
You talked about taxing bodies. You mentioned those. In
Oh, yes.
taxing bodies, and I believe that's something that the GOP candidate would like to address early. Do you have any thoughts on what's the right size for taxing bodies in Illinois, and can that be done as quickly as he seems to want to do it? Can you eliminate taxing bodies?
I don't know how quickly it would get done because, it would have to go to the legislature. Legislature is a deliberative body, and so as a result, that might take longer. But you have to start the process somewhere. You just can't keep talking about it. I am one who would prefer not just talking. I would like to get it done. We all know this is a problem. It's too much of a good thing, maybe, too much of a bad thing. It's just too much. We've just allowed government to spawn. And, that's not good. We don't need that much government. And I mean, I look at my tax bill. I've got 16 taxing bodies on my tax bill. Even if I wanted to be a good citizen and go to all the meetings, I could not do it. And I don't even know what they use it for. I mean, and I'm in politics and in government. What about the average person who doesn't have time to do this? We're just overtaxing our people, and are we just duplicating? And it just needs to get shaped up. So, as I said, we are working with the governor's office. Whoever is governor, we will continue to do that. We're going to push it, and we're going to push it real hard to consolidate. And maybe have an advisory committee so we know what works, what is needed, what is not needed. If it's not needed, get rid of it. Like Cook County does not need 4 mosquito abatement districts, okay? They don't need it. I mean, mosquitoes don't need visas to go across districts and counties, and get rid of it. The county could absorb that, okay? There's things that units of government could absorb and handle very, very well without it being a separate unit of government, period.
All these units of government have their own little fiefdoms, and they're reluctant to give up whatever perceived power they have. I'm sure every mosquito district up there thinks they're the best mosquito district. So how do you force the issue, I guess?
Life's tough. What can I say? And
Well,
no, I'm willing to go to the fight. I mean, I will try and present my position on that, and I think if it's logical and it makes sense, I'm going to push it, and then we will have that discussion. And if it gets into something that may be a bit contentious, fine. It just has to get done, and that's also called leadership. You got to make a decision, get off the dime. You just can't talk about it, and I don't sit on that dime too long. I'd rather put it in the bank and make some money for the state.
Yeah, I know when Mr. Ronner was speaking to a business group here, he talked about trying to cut the number of governments in Illinois in half and hoping to do it in 6 months. Possible? Not possible?
I think you have to start that discussion. You have to start making those moves. Whether it can be done in 6 months, I don't know, but definitely it has to begin, and I think it's good that he brings that up as an issue because he puts it out there as part of his agenda. It needs to get done. We've been talking about it for years. Talk is cheap. Let's make it happen.
Is anything ever going to happen with the Comptroller's office and Treasurer's office combining your for
Yes, yes. And I'm going to push that very hard. That's going to continue to be a priority because it needs to get done, because in times where we're short on money, to be throwing $12 billion down the black hole every year in duplication is stupid. It's just plain stupid. So why should we keep doing that?
Is that 12 million?
12 million a year. 12 million a year, that's a duplication. And, it used to be one office before Orville Hodge ran off with something. We now have all the oversight in place, so you don't need these 2 offices hovering over each other. We use the same numbers, the same computerization, so there's nothing saved by keeping them apart. We've already pushed it through the Senate unanimously, bipartisanly, unanimously. There wasn't one stray in the Senate. Got it to the House where we have 40 bipartisan co-sponsors already. More to come. The legislature is telling all that are involved and all in power that this should come to pass. All we need is for the Speaker to decide that he wants to put it into a committee and move it along. And that time, I am sure, will come because it makes good sense. And, it will come to pass.
Considering you're running against the lieutenant governor, is the lieutenant governor's office needed, or should there be another constitutional amendment about that?
I really think it should be part and parcel of disposal. I don't think we need a lieutenant governor's office. We have a deputy governor that's more than adequate. We can just run down the ballot in terms of if anything happens to the governor. You don't need a lady in waiting, and I only say lady because she's feminine, but that would be generic. You don't need somebody out in the wings waiting for, and that's their sole job. I don't know that we need, that's another $3 million.
Rural Affairs Council.
Pardon me?
They run the Rural Affairs Council.
I think we could absorb that into another government, another agency, and get that job done and keep the rivers going and flowing and whatever. But it can get done, and it should get done. There's no need to have all of this. This abundance, abundanza, we don't need it. and let's get rid of it. And I think the public is smart enough that if they saw it on a ballot, they would vote for it.
There is an issue that's come up called Smart Money Housing.
Yes.
Which is this organization, and your chief of staff, Nancy
Kimmy.
Kimmy, is on that, and somebody named Bewley is. They're like
Our deputy?
They get paid
Yes.
$50,000 a year, and it said they were working 35 hours, but apparently that was a mistake. And
Well, they did not revise, their form.
And apparently, guess who put out today the other side? There's apparently other people in your office that also are counselors with that group. Patricia Allen, Thomas Leiden, and then some relatives of people, Ken Camps, Janet Dobrinsky, Michael Dobrinsky, and Michael Kimmy, who must be related to Nancy somehow.
Okay.
Who are counselors with this organization. It just seems, is it not weird that members of your staff are doing this outside thing that you were involved in and supplementing
No.
their state income for perhaps a significant amount of time?
No, because everything, again, in the issue of transparency, they've reported absolutely everything that they've done. The reason you know about it, the reason that my opponent knows about it is because we reported on it. And we put it together when I was out of office, having lost to Governor Blagojevich, and frankly, you would have been better off with me, but what can I say? All right, but anyway, that's when we started it. I have not been there for over a year, so I'm not actively involved. We have people who do outside income. This has happened all over the state. We have legislators who do outside income. I look at my opponent, a third of her staff get outside income, and she gets outside income.
What's hers from?
Well, we don't know. That's just it. In the question of transparency, we tell you what we're doing. Hers is just there as consulting. We don't know who she consults with. We don't know why she consults or how much she makes or any of that. That's not forthcoming on her form, on her economic interest form. So I think it's kind of hypocritical when she brings that up, since, again, a third of her staff plus she herself are doing this. But as long as you're transparent and you tell everybody, now I must say I would agree with her. I think we should make that economic interest statement a bit more definitive. I think that's in order. But other than that, if you put it forward, you know what we're doing. We're going to tell you everything we're doing.
Are you only getting that information on her staff from the economic interest forms? 'Cause
Yes.
I believe she also makes her people, and I think they put it online, all of her top staff has to put out like a more detailed financial disclosure, the kind that she would like to be.
Right, but the one-
Have you reviewed those of her staff as well?
Yes, we've looked at those, but I think the official paper of record is that economic interest statement. That is the piece de resistance, if you will. That's what says it all. That's what you're officially telling the public, and you're standing behind it. A third of her staff and she herself. So I just think it's a bum argument.
Okay, she also, I mean, I know she has made a significant issue of my staff does these extra reports.
Oh, she says a lot of things.
Should your staff do those extra reports? Are those extra reports necessary in any way for more transparency?
We haven't looked at it yet, but you know what? It's not a bad thing. I would consider it.
Is Brad okay with that?
Yeah, well, tell my brain trust here. Yeah, sure. No, but I mean, it's the more we can put out there at any given time, I want to be on that issue.
Does that mean you're going to implement this in your office if you will?
Well, let me look at it, will you? I mean, we just talked about it today. Let me look at it. Of course, we could always consider you as someone who could be a consultant, I suppose, and give us some ideas.
You don't want my ideas.
You don't want your ideas. All right.
You had talked earlier too about technology and how important that has been to being more efficient in the state office. I'm wondering, do you have a sense of how bad the technology situation is in the state, not just your office, but elsewhere? Because you do have these other systems that are operating, right? These other financial reporting systems,
Yes.
correct, that are not exactly modern. How important, how much of a priority should this be, I guess?
I think it has to be a very high priority. And again, when you have 260 financial reporting systems that don't talk to each other, it just really creates an environment for disaster. And if nothing else, waste. Because you're stepping on each other's feet. You don't know what has preceded. You don't know what has been done. You don't know what's coming up. You don't know if it's duplicative. Coming from the legislature, which I think is tremendous background for this office, we would be voting on issues in an isolated fashion. If we had this out there when I was in the legislature, you'd be able to see if things already existed, if they worked, if they didn't work. You'd have a better feel for all of this. And I think that's very important. I really do. So we have got to get one standardized system that people can trust and that they can go to and that they know it works. But 260, that's for a state this size and with all that goes on here, to have that going on, and you're never going to put the story on your front page because, again, it doesn't lend itself to glamour. It's just housekeeping, and we have sloppy housekeeping in this state.
Anyone ever talk about how much that will cost to do something?
Because we'll do it, again, we'll do it incrementally, as we've done it in our office, because we have old computers. So every year we buy a few new ones. We don't do them all at one time or it would wipe us out. But you plan. You strategize for how to run an office. You manage it. It's called good management. It's called leadership. It's like you do it. This is how we're going to do it. We lay it out and then follow through. So it works. And I don't see why the rest of the state can't work that way either.
So what's in a particularly egregious example of one of the 260 funds?
Oh, jeepers, there's so many of them. I could probably get you a list of them, and then you take your pick of what you think, because, every one of these funds has a constituency, and they're all going to think it's the most important in the world. So the question then is it? And that's why I think if we get an independent group together to evaluate these.
So what, is it like hunting and fishing licenses? Is that one of them?
That would probably be one, but I don't know that that's egregious. That may be something we need. The road fund, something we need. But it strikes me as being kind of odd and silly to create all these funds, and then when the legislature, the governor, the whatever, suddenly realizes that, we're short of money, then they start skimming off those funds. So why are they in lockboxes? Why are they in escrow? Why do we have all these things if you're just going to skim off of them to begin with?
But as you know,
They're not a slush fund,
As you know, as a longtime member of the legislature,
Sure.
each one was set up to make sure that funds collected through certain licensing fees or whatever
Right.
pay for that thing. And everybody criticized Rod Blagojevich for skimming the funds.
They all did it. Everybody did it.
So are you saying that you need to just break down those barriers and say they're no longer specialized even though they were collected for that purpose?
Some maybe yes, but again, that's why I would like to have an independent, bipartisan, non-political group look at these. Let's evaluate what we need. Does it work? Does it not work? Is it necessary? Could it work better? That kind of thing. And wind up with a number that makes some sense, and then literally set them aside. And hopefully not skim, because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing when you do that. There's always a hue and cry every time that skimming goes on. Every one of these groups just howls. And they have a right to howl. They're private funds.
The motorcycle helmet.
Yeah. Well, and
One of John's favorites.
well, that's part and parcel of it all.
Right.
So it could be just about anything. We'll get you a list. It's quite a lengthy list, as you can imagine.
So that'd take quite a process, though, right? I mean, you'd have to.
Well, it didn't happen overnight.
Right.
You have to unwrite all the legislation.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? I know when I came into the legislature, we had 3 books, about this size, 1, 2, 3. Now you get this monster thing of legislation. Do we need all this law? I don't think we do. I don't think we need to make every single move in our lives constricted by government or dictated by government. That's why I'm Republican. I like small government. At least make it manageable. And right now it's not manageable. It really isn't. And that's what causes us a lot of the problems. It's not manageable. It's not standardized. We have stuff floating around all over the place that nobody watches over. I don't like that. I want to make sure we put it together in an organized fashion.
I don't mean to be like this, but it's what we do. Was it a mistake to talk at that open microphone thing about your son Joe and trying to, hoping
No.
to SIU and, can you just go over that? And how's he doing?
Sure.
And did he ever get anything? And was it appropriate to talk to the governor about it at a public place?
Well, I talk to everybody about it. So, I treat everybody the same. Just because he's the governor, I don't care. I'll talk to him. I'll talk to anybody. And I've circulated his petitions to basically in the private sector.
You mean the resume?
Yeah, the resume. I'm sorry. And you know, he's not really looking for a state job. He right now is teaching at Dominican University in River Forest. He's teaching social workers how to take care of soldiers who are coming back from the wars. You know, he's now retired after 20 years in the Army, which I'm very proud of. I'm not backing off of that. Very proud of my son and all that he's accomplished. He does it online. And then I guess he comes up and talks to them and does boot camps or something. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's teaching over there. He would like to be a teacher, and he would like to go into Southern Illinois. He likes Southern Illinois. He's campaigned with me. I like Southern Illinois. I think it's beautiful. And so SIU is because they have a veterans program. Most of our universities have veterans programs. Private sector has veterans programs. And the governor is unique in that he has a tie in this Hiring Our Heroes program, which is a phenomenal network. So, and he's made it a niche for himself that he really knows about these veterans programs and knows people all over. And they're not necessarily governmental. And do you know of anything that's out there? That's basically it. Southern Illinois makes it better, but not necessary. So I'm not concerned about it.
You know, the Tribune, for example, made a giant story of
Oh, well.
just not about you, of just calling to U of I and saying, I'm checking on a student who applied, are they going to get in? Isn't what you're doing by talking to the governor as another high public official just the same kind of influence that people seem to not like?
Well, again, I don't necessarily treat these folks as high government officials. I just talk to everybody in a normal type fashion.
Well, you said you have an important job.
Well, no, I mean, I just talk to everybody. And I mean, I would think nothing of, you know, if I were in the same room as, let's say, the president of United Airlines, who I don't know, I would amble over and say, hey, you know, could I send my son's resume to you? But the Hiring Our Heroes is this tremendous network. And it's available. And I want to see veterans really get jobs. I really want that for everybody, all our veterans. They've earned it. And my son, the same thing.
Yeah,
and
where's he living now, Joe?
San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, and he's married, child, right?
That was his last posting, and I have one granddaughter whom I would like to see because I'm an only child. I come from a family of only children. He's an only child who has an only child. So, you know, when we have Thanksgiving dinner, it's not a big bash. It's small. So that'd be good. But again, the Hiring Our Heroes, great program.
Term limits?
Pardon me?
How do you feel about term limits?
Term limits? You know, I never liked them much because I think, you know, you do have the ability to get rid of them. But, you know, I think with gerrymandering and things that we have now seen where you don't have almost no contention for any of these programs. So maybe it might be worth looking at now. I mean, I'm ready to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, you didn't take a position on the petition drive this year, did you, or did you?
No. I just watched it, you know, to see what would happen. But maybe it's just time to chat about that.
Well, with the gerrymandering, did you endorse that idea of the independent remap? You know, some independent body drawing the...
Oh, I think we should do it that way, yeah. I mean, the way we do mapping in this state, and I don't care what political party's in charge, is just ridiculous to pull things out of hats and something of that importance to be done that way. That's just incredible that a state of this size and repute, it's just not the right thing to do. Get something standardized that makes some sense. Again, common sense. Let's do common sense things so that you do have districts that you can run in and people of all ilks can run, so it's not just defined as to who's going to win it before it happens. You don't need to buy a pig in a poke.
So was the cutback amendment a mistake? As far as
Absolutely, and I said that at the time.
Now, were you?
Yes,
Were you
I was
already?
there. I served with Abraham Lincoln, you know that. Yeah. No, but I did not support that because everything I have said about it at the time has come to pass. You know, we've seen more government tied up with the leaders, more money tied up with the leaders, less influence on the part of individual legislators. You know, it's not been a good thing. The system we had, although it looks strange, it worked. And I work under the theory, if it ain't broke, you don't have to fix it. And I don't think it was a good thing. It really shuts a lot of people out. And I want to see it open. I want to see an open system.
I have one more. This is not directly about your office, but it's about.
But I'm a Badinsky, so I mean, we'll take a shot at it. Okay.
Should be fun. I think I've seen you address this topic before, but you are a woman who holds a prominent statewide office. Your opponent is a woman who holds a prominent statewide office, and yet there really aren't that many women involved in politics. Why do you think that is, and what can be done about that to bring more women in?
Well, it's just harder for women, generally speaking. They start a little bit later in life. Because you get family and child rearing and things of that in there. Women, by and large, are tremendous fundraisers for organizations, for charities, for non-for-profits, and they don't like to ask for themselves. I've never had a problem. I just ask. I figure no is no, but if you don't ask, you won't know. But it's just harder to do that. But it's hard for women everywhere, in any field. It's not just politics. I mean, look at the boards of directors of for-profit organizations. And how many do you have on boards? We have huge organizations that have no women on their boards. And so I suppose you have to kind of, quote, lean in, if you will. It takes a little more effort. It's very hard on families, I will tell you that. And a lot of women don't want to do that. And especially the way the political system has evolved now, it's very expensive. I mean, look at the money that's dropping all over the place on this election. So that's very hard to do. Most people that would like to run are not necessarily independently wealthy. So, they got to fundraise. It takes a lot of money. You all are going to get, it's your job, and I'm not arguing with this, but you got to get picky, and so there's a lot of scrutiny, a lot of oversight. I like the oversight, but at the same time, it doesn't leave you much time for privacy. Privacy is kind of nice periodically. So it's just harder. But I would like to see more women in there because I think they bring a unique perspective. It's a woman's perspective, that's all. We're 50% plus of the population. So we ought to be making some noise. And I think we do pretty well on it when we do it. I think we've got some tremendous women legislators, both parties. Both parties have done well. I want to see more. I want to see more Republican women, too.
Why are you better than Sheila Simon for this?
One, I've got experience, which I bring, which she does not have, which I think is tremendous. Two, I genuinely wanted this office. It's not a consolation prize because I didn't get something else that I wanted. Three, I think we have lived up to what we said we would do and can build on that. And we could work with, Republicans and Democrats and everyone to make that happen because of the relationships that have been created over the years. We really want this office. We really believe in the office. We really think it can make a difference. It's not just a place to land. I don't want, I think it's something I'm really passionate about. I love these fiscal offices. I only ran against Blagojevich to take him out and save all you guys from him. I mean, that was it. Just to take the man out before he bankrupted the state, for heaven's sakes. But I really like the fiscal offices because I think they really add a lot to the state, and as well they should.
When you say no consolation, are you saying she wanted to be what?
Attorney General. She kind of announced for Attorney General, and then when Lisa Madigan didn't move aside or didn't choose to, then she went eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I became mo.
Yeah,
so
I'm not sure if it was formal announcement or not. Was it formal?
It was pretty well known, and I think she was seeking funds to run for that office. So that sounds like you're pretty much heading in that direction. So we made no bones about it. I was going to run for controller. I was going to, and like this time around, there's no horseplay. I'm running for controller. I really want the job. I do a good job at it. Jeepers, we save people money. We make people money in terms of, the good of the state, and we have the good of the state at heart. There's a lot of personality, heart invested in this. I don't think she does that. Hers is just some pass-through. Man, I don't know. It's going on to a lot of other people do. They somehow view these offices as a launching pad. It's not a launching pad. They're real offices doing real things and should be treated as such.
Is there anything we didn't touch on that you think is important that we should have talked about? Anything you'd like to close us out with?
I think I've covered just about everything. We're just going to work and work hard. I've got a tremendous staff. They are very dedicated. They're very professional. I think if you talk to the people that we deal with in the bigger world, that you will find that they are pleased with the kind of job that we're doing. It's timely, it's efficient, and I always say that our staff has good hearts, and that's worth something because they empathize with the public and they try and get back right away and don't let people hang out there.
How many people do you have now?
225. Yeah, because I have to dig through all these cards. See, whoa!
Oh, that's good. And one more quick thing.
We're going to bronze these when we're
You
through.
mentioned that certain people that are vulnerable agencies and businesses go to the top of the line, and I think that's been a difference with Sheila Simon also, where she said that could create favoritism and it should be less of a judgment call. Am I correct in that, and your reason for doing it?
She says, again, many things, and I think it's because she doesn't necessarily understand the office. I mean, she wants to create an educational office, which we don't do. I mean, we're educational by what we do, but we don't specifically, we're not the State Board of Ed, for instance.
Well, you have
But,
a conference on,
pardon me?
you have a financial literacy conference for people, right, which is...
Right, but I mean, it's in passing. It's
Okay.
not the primary focus of the office. But her vision is very simplistic with all these funds that we have out there. Most of those are caught up. They have prompt payment. You have to pay those right away, either contractually or by law or whatever. Where we have difficulties in GRF, the General Revenue Fund, that gets backlogged. And ultimately, you know, we have to make sure that it's not people cutting into line. It's kind of like a movie. It's not like a movie theater line. It's not just a line and then suddenly somebody cuts in and causes all sorts of problems. It's folks that we deal with who are really having problems, and we can fill that hole and keep them alive and not lose them and so on. And again, that information can come to us, and we check it out, make sure that no one is gaming the system. And so as a result, we're able to hold things together in a way that could not be done any other way. In fact, she has used the system herself. So I have her asking for, an OB-GYN type of an operation on a Carbondale that she recommended that we look at. We ultimately funded it because they were having a problem, not being able to make things happen.
While she was lieutenant governor?
Yeah.
You got
So,
You got a name of the OB-GYN?
Sure, we'll get it for you. We'll get it for you. We're talking about, again, areas that if we didn't go and try and help some of these folks, you're talking about nursing homes and hospitals and Medicaid hospitals and folks who literally cannot function on their own at all. I will not have them thrown on the street. I will not have them thrown on the street. That's the alternative. And that's just the way we do it. And I think I don't think she has an understanding of how that works. And we make it very public. Everything is put online, so you will see who gets it. If you have a question, you call us, we'll explain it to you. We'll walk you through it, or you walk us through it, however it is. But it will be very public on who we fund and why.
So this is just kind of a thing that I wonder about. So what was the last contact that you had with Governor Blagojevich? I mean, not in the campaign, or did you send him a note after the conviction, or you sent him a Christmas card? I'm just.
You don't want to get my blood pressure up, do you?
No.
I mean, I'll tell you it wasn't a direct contact, but apparently he had a Foot Locker, one of those warehouse things that you can store stuff in, and apparently he had a big.
Auctioned it off.
Well, he apparently didn't pay the bill. And so the people who owned the warehouse thing, the storage area, they auctioned it off. And one of the bags had my name on it. Okay, so it was a Judy bag. I assume it was all the junk he collected about what a horrible person I was and all the videotape that they took when they had people chasing me around the state just being obnoxious and so on. But anyway, somebody bought it for $500, I think it was. And I lost track of it. And then one of the folks in my office saw it on eBay, and they were selling the Judy bag. And I still to this, I think it was just papers and junk like that. So that was kind of an indirect contact. But I really and truly don't wish to contact him. I think he is one of the most awful public servants in quotes, that we've ever had in this state, and so dreadful, and continues to be. You know, sending out his little PR things, "I love you, wifey," and all that garbage. But, you know, I don't like the man. I don't mind losing to anybody, but I do want to lose to someone I respect, and I do not respect him at all. At all. But we have to deal with it. It's part of our history. It's dark, but it's our history.